So this is Chapa de Bissau. Then there was a big plate like this one, but with Bissau written on it. So meaning that's a Bissau plate. It used to demarcate the beginning of Bissau city. So there's no longer that Bissau plate in this roundabout. It's a very common place. So from Chapa, we are in Chapa right now, in the roundabout. We are going to Mon di Timba. Here we have two neighborhoods. We have Mindara on our right and Renu on our left. So on Mindara side, on the right from here, we have Bande Market, Ferra de Bande. If you come to Guinea-Bissau and you don't come to Bande, meaning you don't come to Guinea-Bissau. And now Rasa starts here. So the downtown Bissau. This is Praça do Império, Portuguese for Imperial Square. Imperial Square is a monument built in the 20th century by the Portuguese colonial power to commemorate the effort of the Portuguese race in building Portugal overseas. After the independence of Guinea-Bissau, it was the only colonial Portuguese monument that remained almost intact in Bissau. Under the colonial rule, the monument was called the Square of the Portuguese Race, and it was renamed to the Monument to the Heroes of Independence and topped by a star. The key buildings in the immediate vicinity of the square are Presidential Palace, PSGC headquarters, former Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Guinea-Bissau, Museum of Ethnography, former TAP office, Orange headquarters, Embassy of Spain, and Imperial Hotel. On August the 3rd in 1959, over 50 peaceful protesters were brutally massacred in the port of Pindigiti, Bissau port, by the Portuguese Colonial Security Police, the PD. The terrible event shocked the whole country and was a crucial point for the independence of Guinea-Bissau uncovered, and it made PAIGC reconsider the strategy, with an armed struggle eventually replacing the peaceful approach. In honor of this massacre, a monument was built in the port of Pindigiti called Mon di Timba, the hand of timber, which means the hand of a swindler or person who contracts debts and does not want to pay them. Mon di Timba stands as a historic monument to all the people killed in the Pindigiti massacre in 1959. Pindigiti Day is a national day in Guinea-Bissau. It is observed on August 3rd each year. This day commemorates the Pindigiti massacre that took place on this day in 1959. Now let me tell you a brief history of Pindigiti Day. Guinea-Bissau had been under Portugal control since the 19th century. A movement for national self-determination was gaining ground across Africa in the 1950s, and Guinea-Bissau, of course, was no exception. In 1956, Amilcar Cabral established PAIGC, favoring independence by non-violent means. The first major act of the PAIGC was to instigate a strike for better salaries at the Pindigiti docks of the Port of Bissau. In August 1959, the sailors and dock workers of the Port of Bissau, working for the then powerful Casa Gouveia at Pindigiti dock, went on strike, demanding better wages and living conditions. Although Casa Gouveia had already accepted the workers' demands, the administrator of the Port of Bissau, Antonio Barbosa Correa, understood that he would only follow up on the order when he felt like it, leading to the prolongation of the strike. On August 3rd, 1959, a large number of dock workers came to support the strike action and took control of the port to stop it from operating. The Portuguese Colonial Security Forces, the PD, International and State Defense Police, launched an offensive to recapture the port from the strikers and brutally suppress the strike by opening fire on the strikers, killing over 50 people and injuring many hundreds. The shooting started at 3:45 p.m. and lasted until 6 p.m. The exact number of dead was never known. The PD also arrested and tortured other protesters. As it became clear to the young cadres of the resistance to colonial power that Antonio de Oliveira Salazar, the former dictator of Portugal, would never accept administrative autonomy, the moderation strategies followed until then had to be rethought. In September 1959, Amilcar Cabral and several members of the resistance met in Bissau. They decided that non-violent protests would not bring change and concluded that the only hope for kicking the colonialists out of Guinea-Bissau would be through armed struggle. The PAIGC was organized. The military campaign began in 1963, launching the War of Independence, which would rage until 1974, when Guinea-Bissau finally kicked the Portuguese colonial power out of our land. Mon di Timba stands as a historic monument to the martyrs of the Pindigiti massacre in 1959. There are also several paintings by local artists in the immediate vicinity of Mon di Timba Square as a monument to their vision and hard work. There is a brief artistic profile of the author on top of the painting. an exhibition of Guinea-Bissau paintings in the square in front of Mon di Timba under the aegis of the European Union. Indeed, these paintings are works of great artistic merit. Arte na rua, a arte vai para todos. Art on the street and art for all. This is a bust of Amilcar Cabral in the square in front of the port of Pindigiti, also known as the port of Bissau. Amilcar Cabral was agricultural engineer, Pan-Africanist, intellectual, poet, revolutionary political organizer, a theoretician, nationalist and diplomat. He was one of Africa's foremost anti-colonial leaders. Cabral was born on 12 September 1924 in Bafata, in the east of Guinea-Bissau. He studied agronomy in Lisbon, Portugal. As an agronomy student in Lisbon, he founded student movements dedicated to opposing the ruling dictatorship of Portugal and promoting the cause of independence for the Portuguese colonies in Africa. Cabral returned to Africa in the 1950s and was instrumental in promoting the independence causes of the then Portuguese colonies. Abel Jassy was assassinated on 20 January 1973 in Conakry, about 8 months before Guinea-Bissau's independence. This is Titina Silla Square. Titina Silla was a member of the PSGC. She was assassinated on 30 January 1973. The day of her death is celebrated as National Women's Day in Guinea-Bissau. Although she died very young at the age of 30, Titina Silla was a combatant who managed to make a difference and captivate all those who knew her. Titina Silla joined the African fighters very young at the age of 18 and became, through her intelligence and courage, the spearhead of the movement. She had as one of the organizers Amilcar Cabral, More than once, she left the country to prepare to help her people in the struggle for the pursuit of human dignity and freedom. Because of her organizational and leadership skills, she was the one running the People's Militia Committee in the North Front. Her mission was to organize the passage of people and goods into the exchanges of the Cachao River, of vital importance for the supply of resistance troops. On 20 January 1973, Amilcar Cabral was assassinated in neighboring Guinea-Conakry. Titina Silla lost her mentor and friend, as did the people of Guinea-Bissau and Cape, who lost their leader, the man and brother who fought and died so that we could all live in freedom. A week after the tragic event on January 30, still shaken by the feeling of loss, Titina headed a small group of fighters in a canoe with the purpose of watching the funeral of her brother and fellow combatant Amilcar Cabral to Guinea-Conakry, when she was caught in an ambush mounted by the Portuguese troops on the Heroine River in northern Guinea-Bissau and then drawn by them. In a single month, Guinea-Bissau experienced the pain of a mother who loses her children. Two African figures, examples of justice and equality among human beings. Simple people, Titina devoted her few years of life to the struggle for all these values, and especially for the rights of people to decide their own destiny, hoping to one day see their people liberate themselves from the chains of exploitation of the Portuguese colonial power. This is Kwame Nkrumah National High School, Liceu Nacional Kwame Nkrumah, in the immediate vicinity of Titina Square. This is a painting of Kwame Nkrumah at the entrance of the high school. Several alumni of Kwame Nkrumah High School in Guinea-Bissau became senior politicians, famous writers, successful journalists, prominent footballers, and others in public life. The decoration of the high school name in Portuguese is covered in weed. Kwame Nkrumah National High School is located behind Titina Square and next to Ministry of National Education of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau. Titina Silla is the symbol of Guinea-Bissau women and our national heroine. She dedicated her life and youth for the full emancipation of her people from the Portuguese colonial rule. Her statue is erected in the middle of Titina Square, bearing her name in front of Kwame Nkrumah National High School in Bissau.